Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you back, or for the first time, to We'll Bring the Popcorn, your favorite film and TV podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the new Disney Pixar film Elio, the new horror film 28 Years Later, and the new Brad Pitt film F1 the Movie.
Well, after a week off, we are back, talking movies, talking everything burnt from the sun. I still got to laugh that I sent you a message welcoming you back from California when it's, 20-something degrees hotter here than it was for you in California?
Definitely wasn't expecting that dynamic to switch. I was worried it was going to be super hot when we were out there, but it was like 75 to 80 the entire time. I literally stepped off the plane back home and got punched in the face with humidity. I almost jumped right back on the plane and went back to California.
It literally
it was
punches
crazy.
you in the face.
It was crazy. Literally stepping off the plane and onto the tarmac to walk back up to, the gate and to leave, and it was just instant humidity, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing back? I'm happy to be home, but it was like just insane, the difference between the temperature there and the temperature here when it's normally the other way. Like, we get more humidity than they do in California, but man, that was just crazy to jump back off and just be welcomed back in that way. It was insane.
Just having Cincinnati be hotter than California, pretty much the entire state of California. Yeah, this heat wave has been, even going to the movies during the heat wave, it's been warm in the theaters to see stuff. It's a rough heat wave, so hopefully everyone in the area here has been affected. I know it stretches from here up through Canada and everything else, that you've been able to stay cool, even if you've been venturing out to the movies. And
it's just been hot everywhere, man.
It's crazy. We got 3 movies to review this week, kind of catching up on things, getting back into order here. We wanted to kick it off, though, that we are relaunching our merch store. So on July 1st, which will be the day after this episode drops, we will have new merch. So we've got 35 different t-shirt designs, from memes to, our logo in different fun ways. We wanted to have a lot of fun with it, revamp it. We wanted to work on pricing because tariffs and everything else, everything's more expensive. So we want to try to see if we could find a way. So we've got 35 shirts at $15 each. We got 50 total products. We hope you can find something that you like to enjoy. This helps us out a lot to be able to keep the podcast going, to be able to put more money into it, to do different things, go see the movie. So we appreciate your support. If you want to check it out on July 1st, you can head over to willbringthepopcorn.com. We got links to our merch store, even a little preview of some of the shirts on our website as well.
Yeah, you really got to put on your creator hat and come up with some really fun.
It was fun to mess with some of those.
There's some really cool ones in there. I'm pretty happy with the way a lot of them have turned out, and I'm definitely going to get a couple myself just because I really like the designs on a lot of them. And we were really focusing on affordability and making it some more fun designs, but also more affordable for people too. Like it's hard nowadays to find a good margin between keeping something affordable and trying to make a decent amount of money off of it. And I think we found a really good balance with that. That's both affordable and profitable for us. If you're willing and able to support us in that way, we definitely appreciate it. But there's some really cool designs. I think a lot of people are going to like the shirt ideas you've come up with for sure.
You had a few that I ordered a sample of, a few of them to have here, but they didn't come in time for the recording, but we'll have those on the next episode if you want to see a few of the designs that we have available. But yeah, if you want to check those out, over to willbringthepopcorn.com. We also have a Patreon. We've had this up from the beginning, but we really haven't done anything with it yet, but we're going to start kicking into that. That's, I think it's $5 a month that you can, if you want to show some financial support to us, we're going to start trying to put episodes out early for those who subscribe on Patreon. We're going to start cutting individual episodes up, so individual reviews up. So if our 28 years and our F1 and Elio today, you'll be able to get those in 3 separate videos through our Patreon early here. We'll release it to everyone a little bit after that, but that's another way that you can help support us, along with Buzzsprout. So if you listen to us in the audio realm, we do have a subscription that you can do through Buzzsprout to get your audio. Potentially could get it early through there as well. It's as little as $3 a month. You could help us. Sorry for doing a big money spiel here at the beginning of it, but it's just showing you different ways that you can support us and what we're kind of giving out to our community with merch and everything else. But wanted to kind of bring that back up here and let you know different ways. If you're looking or wanting to support us, this is how you can do it.
Yeah, and especially with the Patreon, we're going to work on that moving forward in the coming months too, to kind of make it more special. If you do support us, you'll get some bonus content from us as well. I know we've talked about doing, some classic movie reviews potentially, or doing a live Q&A or some things like that. Some special episodes just for people that, support us in that way, and kind of make it worth your money and worth your while to help support us too. But yeah, we're looking forward to, growing that as well as we continue to, now that we're coming up on a year and a half now that we've been doing this show, and, just trying to find ways to grow it and expand our audience. And, we really depend on support from you guys that have, stuck with us from the very beginning, of course. And if you could continue to do so that way, that would be amazing. And we would definitely appreciate it. But we want to make it worth people's while too. It's not just, hey, give us free money every month. We want to come with something that's going to be value for your dollar as well. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll post links to all of that in our videos this week and have you check it out and let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see. If you'd like to see certain things on our Patreon, let us know. We'd like to, custom make it for people as well. And, excited to kind of launch that here now, formally moving forward.
But yeah, with the Patreon, you also get access to special members-only Discord channels and stuff. That's where we can give some extra special stuff. Maybe we'll do special giveaways just for Patreon members. Maybe if we get a big enough following on there, we can do some screenings where we'll rent out a theater and have some movie nights with people, or, do quite a lot of stuff. We're just trying to expand, grow our following and everything here. But we appreciate everyone who's helped us get to this point, and we're really appreciative of everyone who for the last 76 episodes have tuned in and commented and helped us. We really appreciate it. We're just two guys who's trying to take our love of movies and TV shows and stuff and have fun with it, and take our discussions that we have every week anyways and bring it out there for other people to hopefully you get some entertainment out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And, we'll have more news on that in the coming weeks and months as well as we get the ball rolling on that for sure. But I want to move us forward like we always do on our episodes and start talking about some movie news. So I'm excited to jump into that. And the first story I want to talk about is something that brings the biggest smile to my face because, it's no secret here. We are very big fans of Jon Bernthal. We love him as Frank Castle, as his role as Frank Castle, the Punisher in the MCU now. And it's been confirmed that he is going to be in the new Spider-Man film. That is very exciting. I'm so excited for that. John and Tom are currently working on filming, they're filming the Odyssey, the new Christopher Nolan film, together already, so they're going to transition right into that, into doing Spider-Man together, and it's got me really excited for what we've already kind of heard about what the Spider-Man film is going to be about, which is more of a street-level based story here, and having Jon Bernthal as Frank Castle in that has me very excited for what this next Spider-Man story is going to be.
Yeah, this is going to be his first appearance as a Punisher in a film. Like, he's done the TV series on Netflix. He's part of Daredevil Born Again. Yep. But he's getting to bring it to the big screen now. So that's going to be exciting. But it also makes us more excited because you can go back on our reviews and see what we thought of Daredevil Born Again. But Punisher, it was a big part in season 1 towards the end. But we know that ending of season 1 is going to bring him into a big part in season 2 because of where he left off. Season 2 it will be wrapped up, and it has wrapped up, and this filming is, I think, already done for that. Or they have a little bit left. He may already be done because he's been doing the Odyssey and stuff. But that makes you question, if Punisher's there, is Daredevil going to be there with Spider-Man? Because he is right in Daredevil's world right now. Right. So how do you bring him away from Daredevil into Spider-Man being a street level and not have Charlie Cox show up as Daredevil?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've already had Matt Murdock showing up in the last
you got him, but you
movie.
didn't get him as Daredevil.
Daredevil now, so that would be naturally the next step. But it's got me very excited about the story. We've talked about Mr. Negative rumored to be the villain in this one, which is a very interesting street level villain type character for Spider-Man. But I'd like to see a more grounded Spider-Man story while he's trying to figure out, how does he work towards maybe getting back to where he was pre the end of the last film where everybody forgot that he was Spider-Man. How does the situation with MJ resolve? Is there going to be a new love interest that's been rumored to be?
Yeah, that's an easy way when MJ doesn't remember him. Do we bring in Felicia? Do we bring in somebody else to famously an ex-girlfriend or something of his and do that?
Quite a few to choose from, but it has me very excited. I love Jon Bernthal, but it's also very interesting given the nature of the Frank Castle character himself and how he's been portrayed in the MCU so far. Very dark, very graphic, very violent, different from kind of the more comic booky type Spider-Man that we've gotten that's been more PG-13 into what is a very hard R-rated character like the Punisher.
I don't think they're going to be friends.
can't imagine they're going to be on the same page in the beginning or what have you, but that dark, violent type character, are we going to get a more mature Spider-Man story here? Is it going to be a rated R Spider-Man film, or are they going to tone down the Punisher? I kind of hope that's not the case, but what's the balance going to be there?
Because I believe we also got word that Hulk is going to be in there too. So you've got if we go back to a more vicious Hulk or not, or if it's still Professor Hulk plus Punisher and Spider-Man, that's 3 different dynamics you're going to be playing off of there.
Yeah, it's a definite interesting balance they're going to have to strike. It's going to make a ton of money regardless. It's Spider-Man. You can bank on those movies making a ton of money, but yeah, I'm so excited that they're adding Punisher, and maybe we get to see Daredevil, and maybe we get to see some other Defender-type characters in that show, too, given what we've heard about, Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again and who all may be involved in that. I'd love to see them all migrate into Spider-Man. That would be awesome to have all those characters just kind of intermesh and play off of each other here. It's very exciting for sure.
And it could be a good way of kind of bridging where we have been with the TV and film and bringing those together, because we did have Matt meeting Kamala's dad in this last season and stuff. So that's, Ty, do we get She-Hulk to show up again? Since we've already had, Matt showed up in She-Hulk in his, ketchup and mustard suit, as most of them talk about it as well. But it could be a way to kind of combine all that, because they're talking going forward. They're going to try to... It's still going to be connected, but they're trying not to have it be so hard that you have to have watched absolutely everything to understand what's going on. So this could be a good way to tie in and wrap up all of the TV and films and stuff in there, because as we head into Secret Wars and Doomsday and Secret Wars, you're going to have those connections. So it feels like it's after that is when they're going to really start looking at, all right, we want to have a connected universe, but we want to make sure that you can watch a show, but if we have a movie that comes out, you don't have to have watched that show to understand what's going on. So we could see if that affects Spider-Man at all, if they are throwing a lot of the TV and Daredevil and other stuff in there. We've had Vincent D'Onofrio talk about how he would love to be Kingpin in a film, but they have to get Sony's approval for it because they own the rights to that characters for the film rights and stuff. So maybe they got it, but we don't know how much Sony may be asking for that. Like Sony did confirm they're officially like null, and like everything that they did with Venom and all of their spinoffs is like just fully dead. All of that is dead right now. So we'll see what's going to go forward, because you do still have Sony's involvement in Spider-Man. And we know famously with Spider-Man 4 here, they were fighting over it. Like Sony wanted a multiverse, big, connected. I think they wanted Null to be in there. They wanted to connect Venom and all this other stuff in there. But Marvel wants to do the street level, grounded Spider-Man after they've done all the multiverse stuff, because he kind of hasn't been on his own. That's what I see a lot of people complaining about with them announcing Punisher and potentially Hulk and more being in there, is that can you let Spider-Man just be Spider-Man without all of the other characters?
Sure, and I think there's the possibility to do that here. We don't know how much involvement these characters are going to have in the film. It could be like a one-off scene with Frank Castle, just like, having a brief appearance in it. It's not to say just because he's in the film that he's going to be in, 40, 50% of the film, and he's going to be a major character in it. The fact that he's in it is awesome, and I'm excited for it. That doesn't mean it has to entirely be, other characters adjacent, but they're going to play a part of the story, so they're going to have some involvement, and it's still going to be a Spider-Man focused film. I don't necessarily agree that these films haven't been Spider-Man focused. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, it's because you've had the Avengers, you've had Iron Man, you've had a lot of big characters being a key part of it. The main one that you, I guess, really didn't was Far From Home. Yeah. Because, you did bring in Nick Fury, so you kind of did have that bigger connection to all of it, but a little bit. You had the kind of Skrull type of connection. So there's been a lot of... Spider-Man has been used as a connection to the bigger universe as whole of what they've done with the MCU, but he is.
He kind of always has been.
He always has been. So
been his comic
I can see what people are talking about. If you want to go back to be a grounded Spider-Man, just have him facing his own villains and being his own person. But you also have people complain, like, why didn't Spider-Man show up in Daredevil Born Again when, Fisk knocked out the power? Where are the Avengers? Where are the other people? Why aren't these other characters? Like, you want them separated, but you want them all together, but you want them separated.
You can't have it both ways. Internet, knock it off. Go take a nap. Like, for the love of God.
Can I take a nap?
I would love a nap. I am so tired. But, like, it's just, you can't win. You just can't win. Let them do their thing, and we'll take it as it is, and we'll judge it accordingly. That's how we have to approach these things. But I'm excited. John Bernthal's in Spider-Man. Give me Frank Castle. Give me the Punisher. And every MCU property, I don't care. Let him be the new Stan Lee. Let him just be off just beating up bad guys in a corner somewhere as you're flying around the city. And let that be the new Stan Lee cameo. It doesn't have to be
walking down the street with a big machine gun on his back or something.
Yeah.
They're just walking down the street like, hey, Frank.
Like, where are you off to? Killing some bad guys. All right. Have
groceries.
fun.
Groceries. You need a machine gun for groceries? Yeah.
Stay ready. You don't got to get ready, I guess. But it's just, that would be fun too. But I'm excited to see what his involvement's going to be. And, you know, it feels like it's going to be forever before we get that film, but as we've documented here, like, it sneaks up on us and it'll be here before we know it. So I'm excited for it. Next year is going to be just crazy, like, film stuff with Doomsday and Spider-Man. So
I think Spider-Man is now ahead of Doomsday, so that's going to change the story as well.
Yeah, it could. I'm more than excited for what that's going to look like.
So I'm going to take us over into DC now. We're less than 2 weeks away from Superman. That a lot of people are looking forward to, but so is Warner Brothers in DC, because they're putting a lot on the back of this film doing well. But there's been a lot of talks about what's coming next. What are we seeing after Superman? And one of the big ones was, it was kind of starting out as an Elseworlds type of story, which was doing a live-action Clayface film. We now know it's part of the DCU. It's not an Elseworld. It's part of the official DCU. But they have finalized the script. Things are moving forward, and I can't be more excited about it, because Mike Flanagan wrote the script, and he came out saying that I wrote it based on the Feats of Clay episode from Batman the Animated Series, which is my favorite interpretation of the character. Like, it was so dark and gritty and emotional. And he said that's what he wrote the script of, but he was afraid because he wasn't sure. He's like, I turned it in. This is what I based it off of. I don't know what DC's going to change it to, because it's in their hands now. I don't get a say in that. And James Gunn came out and said, no, we're not changing anything. Like, that script was amazing. That's what we're doing. We're doing his script. He's like, there's stuff that changes when you film, because it always does. You may ad-lib some stuff that
may not work.
May work on paper, that may work, but they're sticking to his script based off of Batman the Animated Series.
I love that. Those episodes are fantastic. You and I are both on the same page there. Like, it's a huge staple in both of our childhoods. I still to this day go back and watch episodes of Batman the Animated Series. If I have, an hour to kill, I'll put on a couple episodes and just enjoy that show. This show holds up so well for a show that's almost 30 years old. Like, it's about 30 years old now, which is crazy.
Stop it.
Like, it's an insanely good animated series.
And it does hold up so well. It's even, like, some episodes are darker than I remember them being when I watched them as a kid.
Yeah, go back and watch them now. Like, it's like the Ra's al Ghul episodes are, like, crazy dark. Like, it's some really good stuff, and I'm loving the fact that they're taking it and basing it off that, and the fact that they're not willing to tinker. Like, James Gunn loved the script so much, he's not tinkering with it. I love that. I love to see what they're going to do with it. Now it's going to be part of the connected DC universe. I'm really, really hoping it does well, because I really think that DC doing well will help Marvel step their game up too, if there's some real legitimate competition here. And I'm really hoping that, they knock these DC films out of the park, and they've got a long way to go to kind of repair the damage that's been done over the last several years now. But man, if they get back on track and knock it out of the park and start making some amazing things, like we could be in for some real special storytelling. If, Marvel starts to feel that pinch, like, oh, DC's stepping their game up again. Like, we have to start, raising the bar ourselves, and that's what we want. I think that healthy competition will help make for some amazing films, and I really hope they do well with it.
Yeah, and you can go back in our archives and look at what we thought about The Penguin, but that series was so dark and gritty and emotional and done so well. So, they're saying that the Clayface film is going to more likely be a rated R. It's going to feel like a body horror film, so they're going to go dive into the horror elements of it, because you've got a guy who can change his face and change his appearance and the different things. You can definitely do plenty of body horror stuff with that. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it. They got Tom Rhys Harries, who's going to be playing Clayface in there, which is also the other kind of mixed thing with it, is because when James Gunn announced his new DCU, he said if someone does a performance in the animated realm in the DCU, they're going to be that in the live action. Well, this is the first case already where we're not having that, because Alan Tudyk showed up as Clayface in Creature Commandos, which was the first official kickoff of the DCU, and he won't be doing the live action version of it. So you could get nitpicky on that, but they apparently love this actor who's going to do. He's a bit younger. It looks like it's going to be really good. So that's I can see some fans going on, well, you said they're going to do, well, I would have loved to see Alan Tudyk do it, but it'll be fun to see what Tom can bring to this and what he can pull out of it, because apparently he just killed the audition for it.
Yeah, and that's exciting to hear. I think at the end of the day, fans aren't going to care as much about that. You're always going to have a very vocal minority fans that'll, nitpick every little thing and pay attention to every little detail. I get it, though. They said, if you're going to do the voice, you're going to do the acting in the meantime. Clayface is a little bit of a different type of thing, just because they can shapeshift and do whatever. Maybe Alan Tudyk does make a
Maybe we do get a shapeshift
into Alan at some point, and there is like a little wink and a nod at James Gunn to tell everybody to just calm down and relax a little bit. Mm-hmm. James Gunn, if you watch us, do that.
Shapeshift into Henry Cavill.
Yeah, like that would be funny. But yeah, like it's got the makings of a really solid horror type film that I'm excited to see what they do with it, because they can kind of take some things in a really dark direction here, and I'm excited for them to get their hands on it and do that with it. The actor's fantastic from what I've seen him in, and I love that they're taking chances with some of these guys that are lesser household names and trying to turn them into bigger stars, which has worked in the past for them. Like, it doesn't always have to be an A-lister that comes in and takes these roles, and the fact that they're swinging heavy for a couple of these guys already that are going to be in some prominent roles, I'm here for it. So I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned so many times, everyone knows our absolute love for Batman the Animated Series. It's one of the greatest animated series of all time, bar none. And the Feet of Clay episodes were so dark and gritty and emotional and impactful. Like, I'm so excited that they're doing that. And you got Mike Flanagan, who wrote it. Like, he's a fantastic writer. The last thing that we watched of his was Life of Chuck, that he wrote, and doing the Stephen King adaptation. And you can go back in our archive, see about that, but it was a fantastically done film as well. Yeah. So it's really exciting when you have somebody of the caliber of Mike Flanagan writing a rated R body horror DC film based off of Batman the Animated Series. So like, good. Check. All right, I'm there.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the perfect transition into our next news story, too, because we can kind of leave it from there. And if you want to talk about a fantastic writer, director, and filmmaker, you got Denis Villenueve, who's very famous for the Dune films most recently, has been tabbed to lead the next Bond film that's been announced by Amazon MGM. And he's taking the helm of the next Bond film, which is just phenomenal pairing in my opinion.
Absolutely.
The guy's got a real eye for cinematography and just telling a deep immersive story. He's done a fantastic job with the Dune films, especially the last two Dune films that he's done. And I know he's going to be making the third Dune film as well, just to finally complete
just
that
a couple
trilogy
months
for it. Like here recently, or here soon, they're going to be kicking off production on that, and then he'll jump maybe right into James Bond afterwards.
Potentially, with how long it might take from filming Dune to editing, getting it out and everything, Bond might be his follow-up after Dune.
Be the next one, which is a hell of a follow-up for that. But I mean, you want to talk about perfect pairing. I really think he could take Bond in a cool new direction, and I'm excited to see what he does when he gets his hands on that character and can, really put a film together. But there's a little bit of an interesting caveat to his employment by that, if you go by what Amazon has said in regards to the Bond character itself.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that any director who's in the running, and you had some big name directors in the running, you even have Christopher Nolan, where he didn't fully have himself in the running because he's doing the Odyssey and everything else now. He's always said that he'd love to do a Bond film, but any director who was in the running, they wouldn't get final cut, which is kind of crazy for something like Bond, but also a big property like this, to get a big name like Denis in there and not give him final cut of the film. That basically means a studio can go back in and change anything they want after Denis has delivered the film, and he has no say in what they change or do, which hasn't always been a good thing. We can look back at The Hobbit and other things like that, where we've seen studio changes that did not go over well, but apparently Denis felt good enough about it. He will be executive producing and directing, so maybe that executive producing maybe gets him a little bit more word on how it ends, but this is the biggest franchise we've seen Amazon deal with. I mean, you've had Lord of the Rings. There's been mix with what they've done with that. They've taken Jack Reacher. They've taken Jack Ryan and all that in there. They've done well with those. And they've done well with those. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we get one of those controversies as we had with like the Suicide Squad, where he keeps saying that that's not my cut of the film. That's not what I wanted to put out. I had a much darker, grittier version of that film, and the studio cut this version. We've seen it be bad, so hopefully that's not a bad point of all of this, is that they're going to sully Denis' name by putting out a rougher cut than he wanted to do, because he is apparently a huge fan of Bond. He is a huge mega fan of Bond, and so this was like a childhood dream of his to be able to do something with Bond.
And he'll have the eye for it. I'm excited to see what I'd love to see him get his actual product and fight for it with the studio. Like, get them on board to agree with it. I know they say they have final say, but I'm hopefully they can kind of marry those ideas, and he kind of puts his foot down a little better. And worst case, we can get the Denis cut, you know what I mean? Like, of the film if it winds up being bad. But I really think the casting of Bond is going to be very interesting, and who they pick, because it's pretty important, and it can hard launch somebody's career, really, and it's a big role to hand out. And you know, they've got one heck of a director on board to make the next one, and it's going to be real interesting to see what the future of Bond holds when you have a director of that caliber who's that respected and that talented to kind of take a character like that and see what they could do with it. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't turn into a big mess where Amazon goes and guts the film and turns it into something that's less palatable than what we were hoping to get.
Have Bond driving a prime truck instead of an Aston Martin?
I hope not. But you never know. By the time that comes out, 2028, 2027, whatever it winds up being, like it'll be real interesting to see what they do with it. But I'm excited though. You get the right guy involved there, and that leaves me very happy with what could possibly be in store for Bond, for sure.
Yeah, because he's kicking it off. So the style, the tone, everything that he sets forward with this film is pretty much going to be whatever this Bond is. It's going to be his run, because, you know, same thing with Daniel Craig's and Pierce Brosnan's. Whatever that first director set forward is what carried on throughout. He's only on for one film. You don't know if it does really well, if they'll bring him back or something else, but they don't have a script yet. Yep. They said they're working on finding a writer, getting the story and the script together, then they'll hire their Bond, which internet has thrown out names since Daniel Craig's ended. I don't think it's going to be probably any of them that internet. They want Henry Cavill, they want Idris Elba. They're going to go probably, maybe not fully unknown, but they've got to go with someone who's a little less known, because like Tom Holland's name has been thrown out there. He's got Spider-Man. He's got potentially Doomsday, Secret Wars. He's got a full slate of big projects. Having him become Bond could be. I like him as an actor. I don't know if I could see him trying to be, because he tried to be a little more suave and Uncharted, but he's still got, let's face it, a young voice to him. So seeing him try to be Bond may not be the best thing for him.
The one I've seen that I could see gaining the most traction if they don't go as far into the unknown is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Has been like one of the top pushed like names that I've seen that I think would do fantastic with it.
It all depends on the age range.
Yeah, it all depends on how young they're wanting to go. Aaron Taylor Johnson is probably, by the time this comes around, still in his 30s, like still, you know, relatively young to play a Bond character. Bond has typically been more on the mature side, like, you know, late 30s, early 40s kind of type character, but you could go younger and grow with them, or you can kind of get an established somewhere in that age range type actor to play them for the next, you know, 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, because Daniel Craig was a little bit older Bond. This was a lot of people liked, but, you know, they probably are not going to go back to another 40-plus Bond.
Probably not, yeah. So we'll see what they do, but, yeah, I mean, that casting choice is going to be very interesting to see what direction they go.
Yeah, you got Denis, hopefully still a British Bond, Aston Martin in there. I'm there.
Yeah, we're good. Ready for it.
So moving on to our last story we want to talk about this week is that it's just a little bit of news. We got F1, the movie that came out this week. We're going to be reviewing it here in a little bit, but the writer of F1 was also the writer of Top Gun Maverick. He's finishing up the script for Top Gun 3, so they're moving forward with the third Top Gun movie. They do say this is going to be the end. This is the last final ride. Maverick's going to be dealing with some sort of existential crisis that he just doesn't know how to handle. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Like, Top Gun Maverick was phenomenal. It came out when movie theaters and movies needed something huge and big to bring people back to the theaters, and it did in such a huge way. And you potentially have Top Gun Maverick's director Joseph Kosinski, who did F1 potentially and did Top Gun Maverick, potentially back for Top Gun 3. It's exciting to see, because that was a summer blockbuster. Just the visuals of the flying and everything else, and it was huge, and bringing them all back around for one last ride. But they did say if they don't get the story right that they feel good about, and that's between Tom and the writer and everyone else, if they don't feel good about it, then they'll just let the franchise end it too.
Which I respect. I respect that. I don't necessarily think that's still going to be the case. I think they'll find something they're happy with.
You don't want to do it? Bring Struck together. Come here.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it. Let's put it together. Let's make it happen. But they did such a phenomenal job with these films, and getting them back for this last one, it's going to be some real magic. I'm excited to see what they come up with. I don't think it's going to be the case that they're not going to make this film. There's too much riding on them trying to end it and finish it. I get the whole existential crisis thing. Hopefully that's a good way to put a finale to it. I think, you're starting to get to, wrapping up certain things, especially with Tom Cruise wrapping up some franchises that he's a part of. He's not getting any younger. The man's in his, he's in his 60s now, still in phenomenal shape and doing all his own stunts, which is crazy insane. But, you're getting to that point where that's less feasible and less doable the older he gets and the more time passes. So I get them wrapping up a lot of these franchises. Not to say you couldn't take it in another direction with, like, Glenn Powell as the lead or something, but I'm glad they're kind of pushing away from that and just kind of letting it end the way it's meant to end. But we'll see what they do with it. I'm excited for that film and the follow-up. I think that's a amazing combination of people to, make a really, really solid final film, and see what happens.
Yeah, because no one expected Top Gun to really get a sequel, and then we got Maverick, and everyone's like, okay, give me more of that. Like, I want that. And it's, you created a good but a bad situation for yourself, because now you got to think, all right, well,
how do I follow
studio wants more, fans want more. How do I follow up something that was such a big hit? Like, we know story-wise it didn't veer that much away from, like, it kept the structure of the first Top Gun. Didn't veer too far away from it. We'll see if they veer farther away with this third one or not, or if it still sticks to the formula. But hey, if we get 3 exciting Top Gun movies that have a similar formula to it, then why not, if they're still entertaining?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it and where it winds up, and hopefully that's the last one and they can end it on a high note. I do want to move us now into our first film review of the week. So we have the newest film from Disney and Pixar called Elio. This is the story about a young boy named Elio who's very much a social outcast, kind of awkward, quirky kid that feels very alone in the world, suffering from a very tragic a tragic death of both of his parents that leaves him living with his aunt Olga, who is voiced by the wonderfully talented Zoe Saldana in this film. But, you have this kid who's, dealing with the traumatic, death of his parents and trying to find his place in the world, has no friends kind of thing. It's kind of a formulaic Disney type of story that they've kind of come up with lately. But I gotta say, man, the animation alone on this film was breathtaking. Like, this film was very beautifully animated. The story, I think, was very cute. But let's get into talking a little bit about this film here. What did you think of it off the top of your head here?
Yeah, I took my kids to it to see in 3D, which I think the 3D worked well for it. It was a visually beautiful film. I do think this is kind of a weird one for Pixar that I think it was missing a little bit of that Pixar charm. Like, it was kind of a pretty flat, straightforward storyline. There's some things that I get why they put it in there, but it didn't really service anything but like one reveal. And I'm talking about like he gets an eye patch over his eye because he got poked in the eye, and that's on for the entirety of the movie until they need to realize. And we're going to do some spoilers. This has been out now a little over a week that we've gone in there, that, you know, once Elio leaves the planet, gets abducted and stuff, they send a clone back to take his place so his aunt won't know that he's gone. And the eye patch only served a purpose in the movie to reveal that it was a clone and stuff. There's some little nitpicky stuff like that, but like once he got up to the, what do they call it, the communiverse, it was kind of just basically straightforward. Like, all right, yeah, I'm the representative of Earth. Oh, I have to deal with this hard alien. And that's kind of just like flat. Like, you're still dealing with Elio's crisis of not feeling like he fits in and trying to befriend an alien and stuff. But I think it was a little more flat when it came to that. Like, you could have a really decent emotional pull with this film. I'm not saying it's a bad film in any way. I just think it didn't have that Pixar charm because it just, I don't know, it just didn't hit right. But, and then we know that it bombed a little bit with its opening too, which Elemental did, and Elemental ended up having a long run. But this one's going to be quite a lot different to see if it can kind of have that run that Elemental did.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of room to kind of rebound and see what it does, which is surprising because, like I said, I literally went and saw this. We're recording this on a Saturday. I literally went and saw this film yesterday. Obviously, with my trip to California and everything, it was hard for me to make time to see these films. So I've shotgunned all three of these films in the last 5 days. So they're still very fresh in my mind, but I went on a Friday afternoon and our theater was packed. Like it had a ton of people in it. So I don't know if that's indicative of others, if it's going to have a bounce back week and it kind of holds steady and doesn't have a significant drop off. Maybe word of mouth helps the film a little bit. I don't know, but I kind of agree with you that it felt a little formulaic and a little like beat by numbers, where there wasn't as much emotional depth to this film. Hopefully, like, you can kind of feel the sadness of the character and you can kind of find yourself relating to him a little bit, but I don't know if it had the same charm as some of the other films. I don't think it's worthy of some of the criticism that it's getting online by some people. Like, I think it's a little bit slept on. I could see this film becoming more of a bigger hit when it gets onto streaming, if that makes any sense, if it doesn't recover well enough on in the box office, because there's just so many films coming out right now. Like, it's a super hot time. Like we were just talking about, we have a few weeks here where there are multiple movies that we have to see that are just, and we're just a couple, guys that, have a little bit more liberty to go do that. And it's a lot harder for you, even for you. Like it's just you going to see some of these and not, dragging your whole family out to see them. And it's harder for families to do that. But this film itself, like I feel like I said, visually gorgeous, gorgeously animated film. Let's not take anything away from the people that worked hard on it. Like visually, it's a stunning, animated feature that they did a phenomenal job on. I think the heart of the story is a little lacking. It's a cute movie. Like it's a cute movie. It tells a story. It tells a story well of this kid who's just trying to find his place in the world. He feels like he finds some place that accepts him, but he's a little devious and, not being completely truthful, but the kid is out of control, lashing out a little bit, but it's kind of understandable given the tragic circumstances. That's how some kids deal with that.
The thing is, we don't really learn what the tragic circumstances were with losing his parents. Like, most of the time you get to learn something about the character losing the parents, but we really didn't learn anything about it. Like, he's living with his aunt now, which I would say Zoe, she's great in most things. This was kind of flat because we're dealing with an aunt who never had kids, doesn't have a partner or anything, so it's just her and Elio. And she's also has a career. She works for the military in their space program. She's an analyst, working with satellites and data and everything else, but she wants to be an astronaut. Yeah. And we only get those parts like, hey, they're here about the astronaut program. Oh, I can't. Oh, they're here about this astronaut. I go, I can't. Or here, like, that's about all the depth you get out of her. Like, you do get, there's a hardship between. She's not ready to be a mom. She had, kid thrust on him. This is kind of a standard type of, story we get. I just rewatched the first Megan movie in preparation to watching Megan 2.0, which has very similar that kid's parents are dead, has to go live with the aunt. The aunt's not prepared to have a kid around. They don't know what to do. It's very similar in here. It's that standard tried and true. Well, I'm a parent now to a kid, and I don't know how to be a parent. So she ends up sending Elio off to a military boot camp because she just doesn't know how to handle the kid, which adds that extra to him. Like, well, now my aunt doesn't want me. Sure. I've got these kids that, unfortunately, I did some bad stuff too, wants the revenge. And so while he's about to get beat up, he gets his abduction to the aliens, which that whole universe was gorgeous to look at. Like the joke about being in the bathroom, which is this wonderful waterfall of bright and colorfulness and stuff. Like, there was some cute things with it, but like I said, it just didn't have that connection that you really felt for Elio or not, because he wasn't. In the end, he's an out-of-control kid who did whatever he wanted to do, even when it came to the communiverse, because he's lying that he's the leader of Earth and that he's an adult and he has all this power and control, and he ends up befriending the son of a warlord alien race that wants to be a part of this commune, but they won't allow him because all he does is war, and that's Brad Garrett's again popping up in more, Pixar stuff, which you can always tell his voice whenever he's in anything. And I mean, there was a touching moments with him and stuff, but it just felt like you get some resolution and some touching growth between his aunt and with Elio and his friend and everything else. But I don't know, there's something that was just missing from this film that most Pixar films have.
Yeah, it didn't feel like you connected as heavy and felt it the way you would feel in some of the other Pixar films, and it kind of felt like they shoehorned the connection between Elio and his aunt towards the end too, where you don't know how they bond, and like, does it really make sense that this is what bonds them together, is the fact that she knows that she finds that he's a clone and she misses the kid.
I have a really good kid now. Where's Elio?
Right, like, this isn't the kid I know. Like, he turned on a dime that quick. Couldn't be him. Like, God forbid the kid starts behaving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it missed some of that connection. This feels like it's a decent movie, but it feels like it's like 85 to 90% done. Like an 85 to 90% completed story that's just missing a few elements here and there to really kind of tie it all together. I think, personally, but it's not to say it's a bad movie. Like I said, it's a cute film, visually stunning. It's missing a few of those connective pieces that really help you connect emotionally, that historically they've done a much better job at doing than they do in this film. Not to take away from the overall story. It's a fine story. It's easy, kind of formulaic, paint by numbers. I don't think it's worthy of a lot of the slamming and criticism that people had for it when it initially came out, but it definitely doesn't have the same emotional punch and oomph that you've gotten from other Disney Pixar movies, especially recently too, where they feel like they had been on a bit of an upswing here, where I feel like it's not a full step back, but maybe like a little shuffle backwards, just a little bit on this film. And that's a little disappointing to see. I could be completely missing the mark on it, but it just felt like it didn't get me, like it didn't tug on my heartstrings like I was expecting it to.
It also had something like 6 to 8 different writers working on it, along with like 3 or 4 different directors and stuff. So you don't know if some of that emotional impact and things like that changed because it had too many hands in a cookie jar for a movie. Like for a TV show or something, that's pretty typical. For a film, having that many hands in something can definitely lead to some disconnects of the story. Like, it's not a bad film. It's just not fully what you expect from Pixar. Like, correct. Pixar back in the day, when you went and saw it, you were getting a slam dunk home run, like pretty much near perfect animated film that you're getting. And that's changed because, Disney bought them. They've had a lot of changes, but COVID did really hurt them a lot. Like, Disney deciding to put all Pixar films to streaming and the effort that they've put into them, they've had theatrically more misses than hits lately.
Sure.
But, you had Inside Out 2, which is
phenomenal.
Highest grossing animated film of all time now. Fantastic film. You had Elemental, which is a fantastic film. I actually enjoyed that one the more I've watched it with my kids. That it has the heart and emotion and love and connection and stuff. It's really good. This one could have a different feeling watching a little bit more. I just said it's kind of missing that Pixar heart. It's got some emotion to it. It's just missing that Pixar heart.
Yeah. like I said, it feels like it's like 85 to 90% there. Like you're expecting 100% there. And I think for me, it didn't connect like some of their previous installments had. Like I said, I'm not knocking the film. Like it's a solid movie, but it just, when you're going to see a Disney Pixar film, you're expecting like a 9 or 10 film. And I don't think we're going to get there, but it's still an above average movie. Like our nitpicks are based on, what our expectations are for a Pixar film when we go and see it. You're expecting the tug on the heartstrings. You're expecting to tear up a little bit. You're expecting to, really connect with the story emotionally. And I think they just ever so slightly missed the mark on this, that, maybe going back and watching it again, I could feel a little bit different about it. But for whatever reason, for me, it just didn't have that connection that I was hoping for to come out of it. But in the end, it's still a solid film.
So Elio is a good family entertaining film. It's beautifully animated, good sound design, everything else too. It's just kind of missing that Pixar heart. It doesn't have that same. You're dealing with a kid who a lot of us, even adults, can connect with, feeling lost, that you don't fit in, that you don't have enough friends or people that like you, or you just don't fit in with your family. And there's a good core with that, but I don't think it really paid off as they wanted to with that core heart of the story. Like, you get some growth of the character towards the end and stuff, but it's missing that little bit of Pixar heart. I'm going to give it a 7.5. That does include a little bit for my kids, as I always do with the family stuff. They enjoyed it. The kids loved it. They're not going for as much the depth as the adults do at times, but it's still a fun, solid film, but it does have its problems.
Yeah, for sure. I landed on a 7 myself, so it's interesting that we kind of land in the same ballpark on that. The visualness of this film, the visuals are stunning. They save a lot of things in this film. It feels like a very formulaic paint by numbers. It's a cute film. Like, it's a cute movie that I think, young kids are going to connect with and have fun with and watch and enjoy. I think it just missed a little bit of that mark for me, that I have to knock it down to about a 7. It's still an enjoyable movie. Will I watch it again when it comes on streaming? I'll give it another chance to see if, maybe I can connect with it a little bit more, but it didn't pack that oomph and that gut punch and that tugging on the heartstrings that I really expect from a Disney Pixar film. That unfortunately knocks it down a couple notches for me, but I'm willing to give this film another chance just to see if I can maybe connect with it a little bit more, and maybe, if I see it under different circumstances. I had a little bit of a stressful week myself, maybe seeing if I can watch it with a little bit of a clearer mind and maybe a little more emotional vulnerability, that I may connect with it a little bit more. But upon my initial viewing of it, it just didn't quite hit that same way that a lot of other Disney Pixar films have done for me. So for that reason, I'm giving it a 7.
Yeah, and it all makes sense. Like, it is right on the cusp of being something really good. It's just missing that little piece that it needed, and that to me is the heart of Pixar. Like, it's just kind of missing that heart. But we'll see if it ends up having a run like Elemental did, that it may not start good off the gate, but it could have a long run. But Elio is in theaters right now. Please go check it out if you have any interest in it. If you're struggling with the cost of anything, go check out your theater's discount days and see when they bring the price down on that. That can be a great time to take your family out when it's a little bit cheaper. But if you had interest in this film, go check it out and make your own opinion of it, because you could absolutely love it. Like, that's the thing. Everyone has different feelings and opinions on it. I'm looking at it from being my family side. You're looking from your side. We can all see it from different ways. But go check out Elio. Let us know what you think. Again, come to our Discord or comments. Let us know, and we'd love to talk more about it. If you saw a little more depth and something out of it, we'd love to discuss that with you.
Yeah, we love being told we're wrong. Come for us. If you've seen some of our TikTok comments, they don't always agree with what we say. I love that. I love that discourse. Let's talk about it. If you think we missed it and you think they knocked it out of the park, please come let us know. I'd love to talk about it with you.
So let's talk about 28 years later, this. We're transitioning from Elio into 28 years later.
Very different.
Or as the internet likes to call it, 28 inches later.
But yeah.
Take that as you will. But this is one we have been waiting for since it was announced. Like, it's been 23 years since 28 days later, so they've added 5 extra years to keep with their naming scheme here. But this is Danny Boyle following up on this story that they started. 28 weeks later was about 18 years ago, but it's pretty much ignored for this film. Like, it takes some elements of how they filmed it, because Danny Boyle didn't do the second one. It's a completely singular story set outside of 28 Years Later. It doesn't continue. Cillian Murphy's Jim's character, he's nowhere to be seen in that. It continues basically from 28 Days Later, that now it's been 28 years that we've got the infected are still running wild. The UK has been quarantined away from the rest of the world. The rest of the world is seemingly living life like normal, but the entirety of the UK, you've got boats patrolling. You don't have anybody allowed to do any rescue missions. So if there's anybody who gets stranded or ends up in the UK, it's like, hey, you're there. That's it. No one's coming from you. So 28 Years Later does start off with probably one of the, to me, horrifying things that they've ever done, and that's showing a bunch of kids watching Teletubbies.
Yep.
I have said it over and over again. The baby in the sun of Teletubbies is the most horrifying thing I have ever seen in my life. So I think the baby started the infection.
I wouldn't doubt it.
It's all tied together now. Teletubbies started 28 Days Later.
I wouldn't doubt it at all.
But it's kind of funny that you get that. It's a very British kids show, and you start off going back to the infection and showing the kids are sitting in a room watching Teletubbies. You get the freaky little baby in the sun, which always gets. I say that Teletubbies is a horror film, a horror series to me because of that. It's so weird and strange and all that. It just drives me nuts. But it doesn't waste any time getting into the blood and the gore or anything else. And this is a very violent, gory, heavy, bloody film that I really enjoyed. I think that for being so long from doing 28 Days Later, being 23 years since they've done it, they filmed it all on iPhones using different rigs and stuff. Yep. I feel like it still had quite a lot of that charm, that low budget, gritty, darker, like they have a bigger budget now than they ever did. But story wise, cinematography wise, how it looked, like it just felt like it fit so well into this universe after so long.
Yeah, it felt like it had the same aesthetic as the previous films too, which helps with the continuity, right? So if you're telling a similar type story in a similar setting, like you want that aesthetic to remain about the same. But I want to talk about, the main characters in this film. So you have, the dad, Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. You have the son, Spike, who's played by Alfie Williams. And you have the mom.
So fantastic.
I have opinions about the kid. So we'll go with Jodie Comer as Isla. I'm not going to lie. I could not stand that kid. I don't know why.
Wow.
That kid got on my freaking nerves in this film. He kind of came across as a little bit of a whiny type kid who just...
I get that, yeah.
He came off as like this bullheaded... Like, I get it. Like, the whole thing with his dad, like, and how he treated his mom, I get that. But just a full-on bullheadedness of, like, I have to get my sick mom to this doctor that everybody thinks is a quack, and I'm willing to just endanger myself and everyone else to get her there just to see if he could possibly save her and, have, like, figure out what's going on with her. Like, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. But that's not to say this movie, I love this movie. Like, this movie is really, really good. It's just that kid just grated on me. I don't know why.
I'm kind of surprised. But like, I have a 12-year-old, so I'm kind of right in there because he's supposed to be 12 in the movie. Yeah. And so I'm kind of right in that. Well, I was like, okay, I can see and I can get what this kid is. So being a dad kind of helped me see the kid in a different way because I can see a kid at that age acting that way.
Well, sure, and he got on my nerves. But he did a fine job as that type of role, right? It's just if that's the goal of the kid, the job well done, right? It's just the kid just got on my. I kind of wanted to see the kid get bit at some point. That's neither here nor there.
Write all your hate mail to.
And bring it on. I hate kids. There you go. That'll tell the story. Obviously, I don't. But like you have obviously the mom who is sick. You have the dad who's very much about the traditions of this neighborhood where. They don't go to the mainland very often, and, they kind of keep it communal and keep it to this, secluded space that's protected from, the infected that have, the high walls and the lookouts. And it feels very protected that they, he's very much in the traditions of that. And the kids, just trying to figure out what's going on with his mom. He wants to kill zombies. He wants to go to the mainland and prove his worth. And, they kind of venture out and do that. And he gets a wake-up call very quick on his first time out there. And, I love the grittiness that this film has. Like, they do such a good job of making these infected feel like the threats that they really are, because they're not your traditional zombies. This really kicked off the whole don't have to be slow, mindless zombies walking around, where these are very much more of a threat because they are adaptable. They're a little smarter. They run. They're fast. Like, they're a real legitimate threat, and it kept that very heavy throughout this film of how much of a threat these infected are. And that's not even going into the Alpha character, which the internet just has absolutely loved for one reason or another. If you've seen the film, you know what we're talking about. They call him an Alpha for a reason, but it had a lot of that dark grittiness to those infected, and I kept that story grounded enough that it feels like it was seamless from the first film into this one. And I know you kind of talked a little bit about them retconning 28 Weeks Later, not really taking from that, but they kept a lot of that same aesthetic from the first film that I really, really enjoyed, and kept it in this film too.
Yeah, I think some ways that they filmed 28 Weeks Later, I think Danny used that, but yeah, story-wise, this is kind of acting like it never happened, because in 28 Weeks Later, they kind of set up within a month or two, the infected kind of died out if they didn't have a food source or anything else. And this one, it's been 28 years. They've still thriving and still out there, to the point that we have alphas. You have infected that are smarter, can be a little calmer, but when they go into their rage mode, they go into full rage mode. And that's where you get some of the most graphic, crazy violence, because Alpha just pull stuff apart with his bare hands, and it's wild and crazy. But it's also one point that I could give it a little bit of a knock, is because it almost became video game like, that the Alpha can take much more damage than the other. So I think the dad says something like, took like 28 arrows to take one down before. Like, that becomes a little almost too cartoony with it, that okay, yeah, you get that we can take out all these others with one shot to the neck or the head or the heart, but the Alpha could take 28 arrows. Like, that's getting a little video gamey, and a little video gamey too, because I'm curious why he went with this stylization when they do the kills, because it gets to this like very fast paced but slow-mo like kills for the headshots and everything else. Like, it becomes jarring to that, and it was like a little strange to me that he decided to do that. Like,
it felt very intentional.
It was very intentional to do, but it was like, why are we kind of video gaming the kills and stuff in it? Because we didn't do that in 28 days. You didn't do that in 28 weeks. So it's something new he decided to add, that I could see some problems with, or people having problems with that, because it does, it's scary and frightening, and then you get the kill, and it's like, like really quick, odd kind of kills. Like, that's the two main nitpicks I could have with this, is the Alphas are a little too overpowered, and the kind of the strangeness of it. It's a very quirky film. They've always been kind of strange and quirky with how they do. So I do think this is the most terrifying that the infected have been, because he amped up the sound of them, but just the quick cuts of their attacks and stuff just made them a little more terrifying. You had some more slow-mo, but you also had them because you couldn't hear them dragging themselves across the ground. You're like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. I think they did such a great job of setting tension and just keeping on the edge of your seat at times. The story is kind of split into two different stories here. Yeah. It's all the same, and you can even go back to 28 Days Later, that it basically tells two different stories, because the first part of 28 Days is Jem waking up in the hospital. Right. He journeys out. He ends up finding a couple people, and he's learning about what's happening with the infected and surviving, and they run into a dad and a daughter, and they're just on a journey of survival, and they're trying to, follow this radio message that's telling them to go to this place of survival. And once you get to that place, it kind of changes into a different movie, because you're dealing with these military guys who want the women, and it's getting into a different, darker, and you kind of get this similar feel with this, because the first 30% of the movie is about Alfie's character Spike and Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie going out. And normally they're 14, 15 years old before they venture out onto the mainland. But he's 12. His dad thinks he's ready. His dad's kind of the alpha of this island group. And so they venture out to hunt and the infected. He's also showing them, well, this is where we get our wood, this is where we get stuff, so we have to come out here to get some things. And it's all about that journey and that connection with his dad and learning the dangers and everything else. And I can see where he can be a little bit annoying. As being a dad, I'm like, I see his struggles and how hot-headed and how quickly you can get with that stuff. But I think the actor did fantastic as it. But it's once they're done and they make it back in an exciting way, they make it back, it turns, because Spike sees, and doing a lot of spoilers with this as well, Spike sees his dad is cheating on his mom. Mom has been bedridden. She's forgetful. Jodie Comer, she's quickly just becoming one of those actresses. If her name is attached to a movie, you know she's going to be fantastic. And she was great as the mom. You don't get as much in that first part, but once Spike, sees that his dad is cheating on his mom, that he learned as his dad didn't want to talk about it. They see a fire burning. He tells them about this guy who was a doctor that has gone crazy. He lives out there by the fire. Well, Spike gets that in his head that, okay, well, now dad's running around a mom. He doesn't care about us. You have a really emotional scene between them two, which is basically the end of Aaron Taylor Johnson in the movie, because you get Spike and his mom heading out. He sets a fire to a building so he can get out the guarded gate, which is a little bit, all right, they're all going to abandon. There's so many people in this island. They didn't need the guard of the gate to go put the fire out. You have a bunch of other people that could have done that.
Yep.
But
we wouldn't have a movie.
But he does that. Heads out into the wild with his mom to go find this doctor character's played by Ralph Fiennes, who, again, another just phenomenal actor and everything he does. But it definitely feels like quite a different movie in a way once he leaves out with his mom.
Yeah, there's definitely a tonal shift in this, and it's all about getting to this doctor who is kind of like his last-ditch effort to kind of find out what's going on with her. She's having these headaches, forgetful spells, she's bedridden, has brief moments of clarity where she's either super helpful in protecting Spike or, does something just crazy or phenomenal, right? There's some very jarring things, especially one scene in particular involving a pregnant zombie.
Oh, yeah.
That was very...
caught me way off guard.
Wild and crazy. And that's one to definitely had the internet talking as well. But, you meet up with this guy who was, from the outside world coming in, and his boat gets kind of stranded on the island, and he's like the only one left of his group, and he's kind of a jerk. But that's where you get that dynamic of how different life is for the rest of the world versus how life is in the UK, because he starts coming in talking about, I'm talking to this girl, and that was probably the funniest part about it, was like him showing this photo of his girlfriend who...
What's wrong with her face?
Has, a bunch of plastic surgery and stuff, and he doesn't understand any of it because he's not grown up in that kind of...
He didn't know what a cell phone is. He doesn't know what technology is.
Yeah, and, it's a really funny interaction between the two of them, but, it's very much on this journey to get his mom to the doctor to figure it out, and then you finally make your way to him, and just the absolutely insane setup that he's got, with the skull tower and everything like that. That's just absolutely insane. You get the heartbreaking news about what's really going on with his mom based on the diagnosis and everything, and a really harrowing scene in that about, just kind of making peace with, where you're at and, everything like that. It was kind of a heartbreaking scene really in the film, but eventually, Spike has to, break out on his own here, and he's, it's getting towards the end of the movie, and he starts getting chased by this horde of infected, and he comes across a brand new group that, oh boy,
this ending has been talked about more than anything with this film.
Yeah, so come to find out, now that the movie has been out, that we're getting a follow-up, the second film in this trilogy, very quickly. Like, they kind of kept it under wraps that they were shooting two films at once, because they shot a second film that's going to be the direct follow-up to this, that's coming out in January. So we're getting, like, a very quick turnaround on this. But he comes across this brand new group that
Jimmy's.
The Jimmy group, which, they kind of allude to in the beginning of the film with one of the first things that he sees, but... the leader of that group, come to find out, is the young boy that survived the initial attack at the beginning with the Teletubbies, right? So you have that kid is now grown, and, he's leading this group of very weird, eccentric, tracksuit wearing people who fight the Horde and are very, very sketch. But you meet Jimmy, who is played by the fantastic actor from Sinners, who kind of is really starting to break out here, and he's the leader of this group that, helps essentially save Spike from a certain death at the hands of the infected. And now it looks like there could potentially be a partnership here between Spike and this new group that is going to be the emphasis in this next film. So very interested to see where this is going to go in the follow-up. Now, this was executive produced by Cillian Murphy. He does have kind of a hand in these. It's been rumored that he's going to have more of an involvement in this next film.
When Danny Boyle says he shows up at the end of the Bone Temple, but he's heavily involved with the third one.
So we'll finally get that bridge there. But what a way to end it, man.
That was such a strange... that kind of took me out a little bit. These have always been having a little bit of quirkiness with it, but you literally have a group of people, all named Jimmy, including women, all named Jimmy. They're in these bright tracksuits looking like Teletubbies, but the fight sequences was like watching the Power Rangers, which is, I guess, a little throwback to Spike had a little Power Ranger that he left, and then you had the Teletubbies reference in the beginning. But it was just such a... We had a movie that was very dark, emotional, heartfelt, gritty, and then you end with this such over-the-top... weird Teletubby Power Ranger type of quirkiness. Like, I get British humor. I love a lot of different British shows and things like that. But this was even just a little
out there.
Plus, it's also supposed to be paired to Jimmy Seville, who's a polarizing personality in the UK that is playing off of him as well. So there's some jokes and things you might not get if you're not fully, which I'm not, of exactly who he is. But it was just such a weird way to end the film, knowing that the next one picks up immediately. So we're ending on such a quirky, silly moment, and we're going to pick up with that quirky silliness to start the second one. So it was just the tone of the rest of the film compared to that last 3 minutes was insane. Night and day. Yeah. It was so strange. Very
opposite dynamics and just very jarring way to end the film. You're just like, what the heck just happened? What did I just see? Like, it was kind of jarring. So
especially you're leaving, didn't mean to cut you off there, but since you just left with Dr. Kelson, which you have this knowledge that he's taken all the bodies of anybody who's died and he's burning them and he's cleaning their bones and making pristine towers, and what he did for the mom and with Eric, who was a soldier that was along with them, and what he's telling them about the bodies. So you've got this kind of, it's a little quirky, but it's a very dark thing. And you know, Spike brings the baby back to that baby that was born from infected. He brings it back to the compound that they live in, their island, but he leaves it with a note and he goes back on the wild. You've got this very heavy emotional weight that we've been going through for the last like 25 minutes, and then we get Teletubby Power Rangers. Like, it was so jarring.
It kind of left. I kind of awkwardly left the theater after watching it. Like, I didn't get it, honestly, but we'll see where they go with this next film. But I think we can kind of start talking about, you know, just overall how we felt about it. I really feel like they did a good job with the darkness and, you know, the style in which they shot the film. Fantastically done. It's got a lot of really dark, gritty, effective horror elements built into this overall story. I'd jokingly kind of tongue-in-cheek said the kid annoyed the crap out of me, but it in a way that works for the character in the film, right? So it's like not knocking the actor in any way, shape, or form. It's just the kid drove me nuts. I wanted to, you know,
he acted off of pure emotion.
Yeah, knock that. Yeah, no emotional control whatsoever. Like that, when you're in a situation like that, you'd figure he would have learned how to be a little bit calmer, I would say, like throughout it. But it is what it is. It's just a minor nitpick for me. But I really got a lot of enjoyment out of this, man. I really dug the movie.
28 Years Later was one that we've been waiting for a while, and I think it lived up to those expectations. It was dark, gritty, violent, emotional. It had some good acting, even though some of it was strange and quirky. But it really brought me back to that enjoyment that I had from 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. I didn't watch those again before I saw this. I watched them afterwards, and it feels like it fit perfectly in. After 23 years, they were still able to create something that had the same look and feel, other than that ending that the others did, because we didn't really have that strange, quirky humor in the other two. And so to introduce it here, we'll see how that plays out for potentially the next two films. I'm giving it an 8.5. I really enjoyed this film. I think it was so well done. One of my favorite horror films of the year. It's right up there with Sinners for me. That it's just really well done. It had that kind of old school filming style to it, even though they filmed it on iPhone 15s and stuff. They tried to do some different things. It failed a little bit with the alphas being a little too overpowered, that weird humor at the end. But overall, I think it worked really well. Like, it's a solid 8.5 for me.
Yeah, I landed on an 8 for me. Some of the nitpicks I have will take it down just a couple pegs for me. Like I said, the kid being very annoying to me. I don't know why. It just wants to knock it down a little bit for me. And that jarring ending, like, really just didn't feel like it fit any of the aesthetic in the entire film to kind of end on that note. And I may feel a little bit differently about it when we see the next film and see the direction that it goes. It's either going to sway me back up to raising it up a little bit. I really enjoyed, like you said, the darkness, the grittiness of this film, the violence. Like, it felt very much keeping in line with what we've come to expect from this franchise so far, and it really didn't take it in a crazy different direction, didn't veer away. It kept a lot of what made those movies so good effective. I think 8's a really solid landing spot for me. Like, it's not a perfect film by any means. Some of the cut scenes were a little overdone with the quick cuts, in my opinion.
A lot of quick cuts.
And it was a little bit overdone to where it was a little disorienting while watching it, so I want to knock it a little bit for that as well. But still, overall, a really, really solid horror film that I would put up there with one of the better ones done this year for sure. Like, it's spots where it's legitimately terrifying and jarring to watch and see, and it makes you a little bit uncomfortable where you're kind of shifting around in your seats a little bit, which I enjoy when I'm going to see it. Like, I want to be uncomfortable in a horror movie. Like, I get enjoyment from that, and it's very effective at doing that. So props to them for making a really, really solid horror film that I hope they can follow up on with the Boneyard here that we're going to get, in January. I'm excited to see how they follow up with it. They're picking up right where we left off on this very, very, very weird note that really just was so jarring that it kind of aggravated me a little bit. I'm like, this is how we're ending it. Like, I don't think it has the same intrigue as I hope they were wanting from it to be at the end, but we'll see how they follow up. I hope I change my mind on it, but I think 8's very solid.
Yeah, we had to see if there's a payoff for this cult that we just got introduced, because we kind of heard that Jack O'Connell was going to be in it, and he's going to play this crazy church cult leader, but we didn't really see. We just got Teletubby Power Rangers at the end. Like, it was a very strange way, and we'll see if there is a payoff, because his father warned Spike that there are other people out there who are surviving in the quarantine zone and stuff, but we go very night and day between what we've kind of dealt with. So we'll see if the Bone Temple has a good payoff for this crazy cult or not, or if it's just wacky and quirky, and if it gives us anything really solid, because we don't really know what to expect for the Bone Temple now, because Spike's on his own. He's met up with this crazy cult. Where do we go for the second one? We don't really know.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and find out for sure. But 28 Years Later is in theaters now. Go check it out. It's a really fun horror film, and by fun, I mean absolutely terrifying and weird and quirky, and a lot of the things you want to see in a horror film. We're giving it a lot of praise here, despite the nitpicky things that we have about it. But go check it out. If you've seen it, let us know what you think about it. Do you think it holds up to what we've expected from 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later? Come let us know in our Discord. Come talk to us. Let us know in the comments of the video if you're watching this. Let us know what you think about it. We'd love to have that discussion with you for sure. And I want to move us into our final review of this week, which is the Brad Pitt-led F1 film. This follows the story of Brad Pitt as this older racer named Sonny Hayes, who was kind of a bit of a young phenomenon growing up as a Formula One driver who unfortunately suffers a very serious accident that kind of took him out of that Formula One world, but he's gone on this personal mission of just rediscovering his love for racing, and he's willing to chase that, that high that he talks about feeling in that Formula One car through various different types of races. And it kind of starts off with this 24 hours at Daytona race that, he jumps in and is a part of and helps his team win basically. And it kind of kicks off the rest of the story of the film where, he gets recruited by his friend Ruben, who's played by the absolutely fantastic Javier Bardem. Love Javier Bardem, but he recruits him to join his failing Formula One racing team in the hopes that it'll save it and keep, he's very financially in the hole, and, it leads into the events of the rest of this film. And I gotta say, man, out of the 3 films we watched this week, this might wind up being my favorite of the 3.
Oh, this is absolutely my favorite of the 3. As much as I loved and enjoyed 28 Years Later, F1 was exhilarating. Yeah. Like it was, Joseph Kosinski, who directed this, he did Top Gun Maverick last that we saw from him. And this is this year's Top Gun Maverick to me. Like he has turned into a director that knows how to do driving, flying, vehicle action sequences. Like I'll preface it, I'm not a F1 or racing enjoyer. My dad was huge into NASCAR. I never got into it. So I can see, and I've already seen online that some people who are, hardcore and lovers of F1, well, this isn't realistic. We know with a lot of this, that there's a lot of bumping and broken parts and wrecks and crashes, like stuff that happens, but they amp it up to 11 for the drama of the story. Again, it's a film. It's not a documentary. The visuals were breathtaking. Like sitting in watching these races of getting it from the driver's perspective and over the tire and behind, like just unbelievably gorgeous cinematography for watching these races. There's so much going on that I was so like into every race that I'm watching because it was just so beautiful and amazing to watch and stuff. The story can be a little silly at times because, you're talking about a racer that he's been out of F1 for 30 years, but his buddy's like, well, I've got a rookie as my number 2. He doesn't get along with the number 3, who's another young guy. We got 9 races left to go, or I lose this team. Will you come race something that you haven't raced in 30 years that almost killed you? Okay, let's go do it. It's a little silly and preposterous in that way, but I didn't care. I was having so much fun and enjoyment. It was beautiful to look at. Like the racing sequences, this might be the best racing film that I've ever seen because it just had me so engrossed and emotional. I think I even told you after the film was over, like that last lap or 2 of the final race, I don't know if I took a breath during that because I was so into it. I'm just like watching what's happening. Because they've done some silly, crazy, multiple wrecks and other stuff. Like, is this going to end like you think it's going to end, or are they going to do something preposterous to end it? But it was just, I was glued to every racing sequence that they did in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of trepidation going into this because, one, of being a racing fan when I was younger and into my adulthood. Like, I've fallen off of it significantly in like the last 10 to 15 years for sure, but I was very much hardcore brought up into like NASCAR and racing and like heavy things like you mentioned. And, I had a little bit of trepidation going into it. One, with that, two, the length of the film. It's a 2.5 hour movie. Like, it's not a short film by any means, but they did such a good job of keeping my attention. I didn't notice it was a 2.5 hour movie. Like, it really didn't. And it kept that grip on you the entire time. The racing sequences, like you said, were shot incredibly well. The story does a good enough job of holding everything together, right? Because you have this guy who struggled with, finding his passion for racing again and was chasing it. And you get this, grizzled old veteran trying to bring along the young rookie who flashes all the potential in the world, but needs a little bit of guidance to become the best version of himself. So you have that dynamic. Who give a little bit of a flowers to Damson Idris, who played Joshua Pierce, the rookie in this film as well. Like, he did a really good job of, playing that cocky young kid who, has the world at his hands, but he's just missing one or two small things from being a young upstart kid to becoming the superstar that he could be. And I think they did a good job of bringing him along in this film as well, to kind of develop that character that you get, where he finally starts to get it. Like, he doesn't agree hardly ever with, Brad Pitt's character, but they play off of each other so well that the chemistry between the two of them was a lot of fun. Especially, one of my favorites was just a subtle, not really a throwaway, but kind of like a bonding scene for them with the dinner and the card game, which was a lot of fun banter back and forth that was done really well. But man, those visuals on the racetrack were stunning. They were gorgeous, like so well shot, and it was taken with a lot of care that you could tell they paid a lot of respect to racing in the feel that you get when you're in a car like that can move like it moves, and you get so many of those elements that I think were done right. And yes, there's some of those elements that have to be sensationalized for film, but they do it in such a good way here, man. Like, it really felt like you were in that tight driver's seat with Brad Pitt, or with, Damson Idris as Joshua Pierce, like in their cars with them and feeling what they felt when they raced. And it was just so well shot, man. I had an absolute blast watching this.
Yeah, and there was CGI and stuff used, but they did so much smooth that I didn't really notice or care if I did see anything that popped up. Like, you're talking about feeling the speed of vehicles that can go 200 plus miles an hour, whipping around these tracks. Like, you felt it. You got to see the races in so many different ways. Like, I don't know if I could go watch an F1 race now after seeing how they did those shots and stuff. Like, well, I'm just getting a top-down view of them going like this. Well, give me a driver view. Give me an over-the-tire view. Yeah. Because they did a film that just so perfectly, to me, showed that racing off. Again, I'm not a racing fan. I love cars and stuff, but I'm not a racing fan. Yeah. And I love this movie. Like, it was the summer blockbuster you want to see, because the visuals, the racing action was just so exhilarating and fun. It was just something that I'm just, all right, we got the story, we got the in-between stuff, which is fun. All right, we're at another race. All right, I'm ready to watch what they do with it, because it was just, the races were beautifully done. Like, they were just so well filmed and shot. Like, I'm not talking about technical of the actual race cars, the drivers, or the teams, or anything, just of a movie racing sequence. They were phenomenal. And I have to give props to Carrie Condon as Kate. She was really fantastic, being one of the two kind of lone women in this story who's part of the team, who's leading up the team, handling all the aerodynamics of building the car. And, a lot of the stuff can go on her. And she's got her storyline where she's trying to prove people wrong and stuff. They don't give as much depth to her, but she gets just enough that she gets to carry. I love her accent and stuff, too. So hearing her go at Brad Pitt, that accent just helped accentuate that more. Like, all right, yeah, she's giving it to him right now, and that accent just helped make it sound so much better when she's ribbing him and going off on him. But yeah, Brad Pitt and Damson did such a good job playing off each other. I think it took a little long to get to the point of where you finally get to see, Brad, Sonny Hayes finally sees what he's doing wrong, and Damson sees what he's going wrong. It takes to the pretty much a very end before they start seeing that. It took a little long to get there, but as I said, I was so enthralled with what they were doing, I didn't really care. Like, the story isn't the strongest part of it, but it does the best job that it needed to do to fit these visuals. Like, this is the Top Gun Maverick of this summer.
Yeah, of course, it definitely is, and I hope it does gangbusters at the box office, because this felt like a big time blockbuster action film, and it had all of the elements that you want in a blockbuster action film, right? You got a little bit of a love story, you've got elements of danger, excitement, and just all of these things marry really well with a very beautifully visually produced film that you could just tell, like I said, they pay so much respect to the being as authentic as they possibly can be, to, show off what these drivers go through during these races. And it does such a good job of that you don't have to be a racing fan to appreciate it. Like, they pay so much attention to detail. And like, if you're a hardcore racing person, I still think you will get a lot of enjoyment out of this, because this is probably the closest, most accurate representation of this that I think we've ever seen, really. I mean, you could quote another, funny enough, another Tom Cruise film, Days of Thunder, which is probably the most accurate type racing film that we've seen come out of it so far. But this is just leaps and bounds ahead of it, and it might wind up making one of my favorite movies of the year list, because I think we both just came out of it like, wow, that was just a phenomenal movie.
I'm ready to run. I think we're ready to run through a brick wall.
Yeah, we're ready to run through a wall, man. I was hyped. I was pumped coming out of that. Like, that was a lot of fun.
It's really hard to drive home after watching F1.
You just want to,
like, all right, I do not have a race car. This is an SUV or a small car. We are not race cars.
Love it.
Yeah, it wasn't a race car.
Like, we weren't cutting corners quickly or anything like that, driving home or anything. But you had that feeling, that want to go out and do like one of those Richard Petty experiences or something, to where you can go out and drive a car on a track or something and just have a good time with it. It kind of makes me want to do something like that. So I think they were very successful there, but for sure. But, in the end, F1 is just a phenomenal representation of racing, and they paid a lot of true homages to everything that goes into making these cars look and move the way they do. I think it was such an accurate representation of racing, as well as they could have done. Yeah, things were a little bit sensationalized for the sake of a film, which are kind of needed to be, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm giving this film a 9. I'm giving it a solid 9. It's not a completely perfect movie, but it's really, really close. It's really good, really well done. It's a little long, like you said, which may knock it down just a little bit for me, but it really didn't feel like it was a long movie while we were watching it. The action sequences are absolutely phenomenally well done, and had us, as much as a cliche is, I think we were both on the edges of our seats watching this film and just in bated breath to see how it was going to end, and how each of these races had a little bit something different. Like, we got a lot of racing in this movie, and each race felt like it was its own thing and kind of different from each other, and how they portrayed the race, and just a lot of really, really solid, phenomenal elements done in this film that I have to land on a 9.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 9 as well. It's one of my favorite films of the year because it was so exhilarating. Like, the cinematography and the filming of these races was just gorgeous to look at. You felt the speed. You felt like you were there in the car with them. Like, there was nothing really in those sequences that really took you out, seeing like it was CG, or because many times like race sequences in movies, you can tell, all right, they're actually driving like 20 miles an hour, and you can tell they're driving 20 miles an hour. You felt the intensity of these races and of what the cars are going through. Yeah, it's got some silly, absurd, over-the-topness, some stuff with Sonny Hayes keeping the entire line of cars behind him to try to help his teammates, and the amount of wrecks and other stuff that happened in such a short amount of time from to do. But I didn't really care about those few shortcomings of the story because the action sequences were so phenomenal. Like, Joseph Kosinski has quickly become, after Top Gun Maverick and now F1, one of those. If he's doing an action vehicle movie, I'm going to go see it, because he leaves you with that feeling that you want from a summer blockbuster, that you left amped up and pumped up and exhilarated by the action that you saw. So it well deserves a 9. That 1 point off is just basically for the story not being as strong as it could be. Again, I'm not an F1 racing watcher, so technical aspects of if they got this right or that right, I didn't really care, because it did enough of what it needed to do in the film to have me just absolutely enthralled in every single race. So a 9 is perfectly solid for this movie, and I hope it makes a ton of money, because it is one that absolutely deserves to be seen in movie theaters. The sound, the feel of the rumble, the size of screen, you need that theatrical experience to experience F1.
Yeah, this is definitely one that we recommend 100% going and seeing. If you can splurge to get one of those where you really feel the rumble in the seats too. Like, it's one of those in-theater experiences that make that experience so magical for us, and it's worth every penny for it for sure, because you get the feel and the rumble in your seat, and you feel like you're along for that ride too, and they do such a good job of keeping you invested in what's going on and caring about what happens to these characters, and rooting for them to get more successful with each race and hopefully eventually find a way to win and save the day. So go check out that film. F1 is in theaters now. We cannot recommend enough going to see it. Come to our Discord. Let us know what you think about the film, because it's just easily going to wind up on probably both of our end-of-year lists of favorite movies of the year. We had such a good time with it, and we hope you got the same enjoyment out of that as well.
But that's all we have for you this week. Thank you for coming and tuning back in after we took a week off here. Next week, we have Jurassic World Rebirth. I'm going to say Jurassic Park Rebirth, but it's the continuation of the Jurassic Park series. It's another, semi-reboot. It's still connected, but it's rebooting and changing. We're also going to be checking out Megan 2.0. We're going to see if it is a Terminator 2 clone, as the trailer seems to show, and how much horror elements we get out of it, if it's gone more into the sci-fi action. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio realm on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.